that you do hear us. We've just finished the Old Testament, and we've seen the record of your faithfulness to your people. And it is on that basis and with that encouragement that we pray, that we trust, that we believe. It's because we have hope in you, not in our petitions, not in horses and chariots, but in you. That's why we don't fall. That's why we stand. You are a faithful God. And even in the midst of our great sorrows, and in this COVID time, some of our people have endured some great sorrows. You are a faithful God. Even though you are invisible, you work. You work your plans. You cause things to come to pass. You save your people. We do not know what the future holds, Lord, but we know you. And you are ever present, past, present, and future. And thus our trust is in you. Help us not to trust in chariots or horses, not to trust in health, not to trust in vaccines, not to trust in politics, not to trust in all of these things on which people put their ultimate hope. It's good that these things come along and help us. But our ultimate trust is in you, and thus we are never put to shame, the Scripture says. Bless our efforts this evening to communicate as a body. Where would you have us go, Lord? How would you have us get there? We say like Moses, if you do not go with us, we would rather live in the desert. So speak to the hearts of your people, and together call us to your will. Help us to know it and then to do it, unified and in great joy. For Father, we pray these things in the name of Christ, knowing that the Bible teaches us, if you have given us Jesus, how will you not freely give us all things? And thus we pray. Amen.
Okay, so just in terms of some housekeeping, I'm going to kind of facilitate the agenda to different folks, and we're going to leave plenty of time at the end for some questions. If you think of a question, jot that down, make a note, however you'd like, and then at the end, because we don't want to pass microphones around to everybody, I'm going to kind of walk around the room, and I'll repeat the question because, did the live stream come up? Are we okay? That way, you can't really hear you guys if you ask a question on live stream. So I'll repeat it into the microphone so the folks joining us online can hear. And so we'll do that at the very end. So we're going to start with Mr. Weems. Pastor Weems is going to update us on a few things he has on his plate.
Thank you. And I'm actually texting somebody now to tell them YouTube's working.
You want a microphone? Because they can't hear you without your microphone.
Right here. Thank you. I've got to go to my notes now. Oh, Christine Browning's asking the same thing. Just a minute. Do you mind if I respond to her first? It is on now. Okay, great. Here we go. All right, for those of you here and those of you who are watching via YouTube, first, we didn't talk about this, but somebody asked me when we came in, when will we have our bulletins again? I don't know. Probably not before the end of the year, at least. We have the bulletin online, but just passing it and touching and that sort of thing, it probably will not be anytime soon that we do bulletins. But do check online, because every week Debbie's still producing the bulletin. She's putting it online. And I know that people appreciate that. They can take it home and read it and look at it and that sort of thing. The sermon notes are in it. Just because of the situation we're in, probably not anytime soon. How long will we stay in two services, someone asked. I think we've agreed as elders that's probably at least till the end of November. We don't know for sure, but right now for social distancing, we feel like that's essential that we stay in two services so that we can stay, away from each other. And at least through the end of November, we'll be in two services. Wednesday nights, we are making a change in the way that we do things on Wednesday nights. To this point on Wednesday nights, we start at 6:30, we finish at 7:30, and I preach for basically 55 minutes. But we're going to change starting this coming Wednesday as we start the series in John. and that is from 6 to 6:50 we'll have prayer. From 6:50 to 7 we will have music. Charlie will be leading us in music, and then the FaceTime will start at 7. It won't be at 6:30 to 6:50 during the prayer time because that's a very personal time. There'll be personal requests being offered, made, that sort of thing. It won't go during the music because then we have CCEL issues that we have to deal with and all those kinds of things. And so the actual teaching will start at 7 o'clock and go from 7 to 7:30, and that's when we will appear on Facebook. But 20 minutes of prayer and then 10 minutes of music and then teaching starting at 7. And Lord willing, in January, as we've read through the Bible this year, we're going to read through the New Testament in 2021. In other words, start in January, go to the end of December, slow down, and read through the New Testament together chronologically. Chronologically. We'll read through the New Testament together. And I'll then every Sunday preach a sermon from a text that we have read during that week. Okay, so that's the preaching plan for 2021. That's how Wednesday nights are changing, and we're probably going to stay in 2 services at least through the end of November, but who knows after that. Okay. If you have any questions, you're watching on live stream, text me 676-2676. Just send me a text 676-2676, and I'll read that and we can answer your question. Chris, thanks.
Thank you, Pastor. Joel, you're up next, sir.
All right. Quick update on the children's ministry and youth ministries. Sunday we had our first time of nursery, preschool worship, and children's church, and it went fantastic. We know that it's the beginning of fall break, and this next week will be the end of fall break, but that gave us a good idea of how that transition will go, and it went very well. So thank you all who came and participated, and those who volunteered and gave up their time. We appreciate that. Along those lines, we do need, so what we did was lined up people for a month at a time. So October is covered, some of November is covered, and then we'll kind of do a rotation. But we are needing some people for the nursery. So if you have a desire to help out with the wee ones, please do so. Or if you'd just like to be on call as a substitute. So you wouldn't be on the schedule, but you would be able to substitute. We need some people for that. We need another team for preschool worship. We prefer that to be about 2 or 3 people. That would be fantastic. And again, you're serving just for a month at a time during the second service. So we need some November teachers for 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. I'm jumping ahead because that's in our looking ahead, but I'll talk about that in just a moment. So we need some teachers. And then we also need some teachers to rotate with Children's Church. So as we're getting back and going, which is fantastic, and I think it's great, that also means we need volunteers. Many volunteers that we have had may not be able to with the current situation going on in the world. So if you're like, I think I can do that, then please do. Give it some prayer and then contact Angela, yes, or myself. But looking ahead, in November, we hope to start, the plan is to start a class for 4th, 5th, and 6th. So during that second service time, the preschool, the children's church, and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade class, rather than just doing a normal thing, we're using the curriculum that we would have been using during the CG time. We have that curriculum. We kind of abruptly started. It follows a pattern through Scripture, so we are picking up where that left off. So it's not just kids' playtime for an hour and a half, but they're getting some good teaching. So we're excited about that. So that way we'll have covered, starting November, nursery all the way through 6th grade. We're also looking, as far as children goes, we kind of think of this as children's ministry, the Head Start Christmas program. So in years past, we have had children that we have kind of adopted to buy Christmas gifts for, and we are currently in the process of talking with the folks that run that to get some children. I know some people had asked about that, and we are hoping that that will work out great, and more details will come along. Some people have asked about Wednesdays, or maybe you're wondering about Wednesdays. When will Wednesday's children's ministry start? One step at a time, everybody. I know we're excited. Right now, are talking about probably in the new year. We're in that time of year, so we're just starting up things on Sunday. When it comes to Wednesdays and we get into the holidays, we end up stopping for a lot of weeks. So rather than starting and stopping, we'll just go ahead and plan, hopefully, to start once January rolls around, depending on how things are going. So we're kind of just keeping our fingers on the pulse of the nation and seeing where we're at there. So that's kind of that for children's. Again, if you have any questions, contact this man right there. He rattled off his number so fast. What was that number again?
676
676 2
676.
676. Okay. 676 2676. I think I said that right. Youth ministry. I'm excited. The Dixons are going to start teaching a class on Sunday mornings. Eric and Lindsay. They will do that during the first service. So we're trying to logistically figure out where we can use spots in the building. They have a strong desire to teach, and they'll kind of go along with what the CGs are doing as far as using the scripture from the sermon series, and they're excited to start that. So we don't want to break up families during worship, and I know now that we're in this two-service situation, so they thought if they just at least offer it during the first service, then it provides something for the youth during that time. So I'm excited about that and grateful for them to do that. And otherwise, the youth have kept a pretty good schedule of meeting Sunday nights and Wednesdays. We've utilized the great outdoors much. As time gets a little chillier, we may be moving inside, and as the light, it gets dark much quicker these days, so that's kind of sad. But we have kept going. We have lots of activities coming up, and we've been just plugging away, so I'm excited about that. And that's kind of that about youth ministry. And I did want to say, just as a side note, because I know some people are saying, why did it take so long to start children's ministries? There's probably a lot of people that are wondering, why are we starting children's ministries? But in talking with a lot of other children's pastors and youth pastors, we're right there in it as far as where people are at, especially with a congregation our size, if not in the front. Just this week, since we started children's ministries, I received 4 different phone calls from 4 different people that oversee children's ministries at various churches, saying, hey, we heard you started up. What are you doing? How did it go? Because we're not even thinking about doing that until this. So just as an encouragement, I know everybody's on a different timeline and in a different comfort zone with all that, but rest assured we talk about it a lot and are trying to cautiously start things. I know some churches that started and then stopped and started and stopped, and that's frustrating to the children, to the parents, and to the workers. So our goal was to start and then carefully do so and continue that. So I'm just excited that we're at where we're at. We're meeting, our children are meeting, and we're doing ministry locally and around the world. And on that note, Operation Christmas Child is right around the corner. So pretty soon you'll see cardboard boxes and Christmas boxes. Make sure that you're planning to grab those. We are still a central drop-off location, so you're going to start to see boxes. You'll see some things up here. Grab one of those, fill it up with wonderful toys, because when it goes overseas, it goes with the sole purpose of the gospel. I've talked before about disaster relief and how Operation Christmas Child, Samaritan's Purse, uses disasters really as a platform to share the gospel with people. And it's the same with these shoe boxes. The goal of the shoe boxes is not toys to tots. It's about taking the gospel into these far-to-reach places. So thank you, and look for that.
Pastor Charlie, you're up, sir.
All right. The last time we had this meeting, we were talking about a project for the live stream and some of the sound equipment. I'm happy to say that project is 99.9% finished. There's just a couple little cosmetic things to be done. I'll try to be brief and explain to you what all we did. Most of it was for the benefit of the live stream more than what goes on in the sanctuary. We added some new lighting. It made a little difference in the sanctuary, but it made a huge difference on the live stream. The lighting was poor for the camera quality and stuff, but we've improved in that area. For the sanctuary, we did put in new speakers and improved the sound quality in here quite a bit. And the few things done in the booth, but the biggest thing was that room up there. As you see, it used to just be open, and it was kind of an all-in-one junk closet kind of room. We've turned it into a broadcast booth for the live stream so that we can monitor it appropriately. Amongst other things, it can be used for podcast and other uses. I would like to encourage anyone interested who would like to see that room. It's really cool. After we finish here, if you would like to take a quick tour up there, I'd love to show it to you. So let me know if you're interested in that. So that project came in well under budget, and I want to thank Stuart Baker for a lot of hard work that he and I put into this, and he was a great help that helped come in under budget. So very pleased with that. That's about it as far as my update on what's going on. I'm glad that project is finished. But Joel did want me to mention, we've been talking about a fall festival. I forgot that 4th, November 8th, 2nd?
It's in the fall. We know it's in the fall.
November 8th, okay. And our plan was to use the lower level parking lot, the entire thing, so everybody can be very well spread out, and everybody can park in the upper level parking lot. Provide some games like we did before, spread out, a chili cook-off, taking all of the precautions necessary to make that safe. But here's the thing, if we don't have CGs willing to put together games, then we'll have a huge parking lot with some chili, and that would be weird. So we really want to know, are CGs interested in putting together a booth to provide some fun for some kids and some families? We'd really like to do this, but if we don't get enough response, then we're going to kind of fill it out, and we'll just push that on down the road to another time. So if you would, please respond to me or any one of us just to let us know. Don't respond to me. Respond to Reggie and let him know if you're interested in putting together a booth to participate in that. All right.
I'll lose it.
Thank you, Charlie. And I've been assured some of you can prepare chili that is spicy enough that it just wipes COVID out of your tract. So that is the kind of chili I like. So if you will make that, that would be wonderful. Brother Robert, you are next, sir.
Thank you, Chris. We may need those wide open spaces with that chili. Let me
There's
start.
no drum set, Robert. To, you know.
Pardon me. That was live, wasn't it? Let me start with a report on our seniors. COVID's messed with all of us, but it's especially messed with our seniors because we are a little more vulnerable to these germs and illnesses, and most especially those that are in nursing homes, those that have family in nursing homes. But we are surviving. We are grateful for that, the Lord's blessing. Many of you are coming to live worship services. We're grateful for that. Many of you have chosen not, and we understand that entirely. We just need to be in prayer for our seniors, and especially during this time. To let you know, next Monday of next week, we have a senior leadership team. We have a small group of folks gathering to discuss a November senior luncheon. We're hoping to have that and making plans for that next Monday, and perhaps a follow-up meeting to finalize those plans. But pray with us about that event and pray for safekeeping of our seniors, that we'll do it wisely and do it well. I'd like to report on prayer now, the prayer ministry in our church. The last Friday of the month prayer meetings, we had several here. I don't know, 8, 10, 12 attended. Great times here. We've had the last 2 or 3 through Zoom. They've been a blessing, but not really well attended. Again, 8 to 10 to 12 individuals, sometimes 2 folks from a family on the Zoom prayer meeting. But thinking that announcing it Sunday, putting it into Wednesday Connect, and then having it on Friday, maybe it's slipping through the cracks on some folks' schedule. So our next prayer meeting will be earlier in the week. And you saw in the Connect today, a note in there relative to the change of time, hoping to get it closer to our announcement time so people will remember it, thinking that may be the reason a few people have not attended. But keep an eye out for the link for that, and we'll be sending that out real soon. Secondly, although this isn't up and running, can I mention that we are coming soon, probably mid-October, on a call-in, text-in. We're not exactly sure in my mind, my senior mind. I'm not real sure how it's going to work, but it is a means whereby folks can call or text a prayer request 24/7. It goes into a program, and we're actually waiting on the company that has the program to find time to work us in to set us up for this. But when it's online, anyone can call or text in a prayer need. That in turn will be sent out to different prayer team members who will take turns on a rotating basis praying for these needs. It's just an enhancement to our prayer ministry to enable folks to call in or text in for a prayer need. Keep that in mind. And along those lines, I want to mention another soon coming enhancement to our prayer ministry. But we need prayers, P-R-A-Y-E-R-S. We have several. We've lost some due to sickness and various and sundry things. But if you are interested in praying, I hope we all are, but if you are interested in praying, I would love for you, we would love for you to be a member of our prayer team. We have a prayer chain that goes through Debbie in the church office. We have a prayer room ministry, not only during CGs, but others on a rotating basis pray during the worship hour for our pastor. During COVID, our prayer team members, if they're not here, they're praying at home on their assigned day. So we have many prayer initiatives going right now, and we need your help. If you're willing to pray, you could fill a vital role, I mean vital, in terms of praying for needs and for our church. Another initiative we hope to start soon is to have a prayer team member available at the conclusion of our worship services. Not in here because of COVID and having to spray down the sanctuary, but in the coffee bar area with a sign out there to designate the location up high enough to where you can see it. And we'll have folks there with a lanyard on identifying themselves as a prayer team person. If you have a prayer need and you're physically here, you can go to that spot after the service, either of our morning services, and have someone pray with you or pray for you. So we have several prayer initiatives going on, and we have several prayers who are very, very active. But if you're interested in prayer, please contact me. You can contact the church office as well. My email is through the website. You can get in touch with me through Debbie. I won't give you my phone number because it's not quite as easy as Reggie's to remember. But please get in touch with me or some of us, and we'll get you connected as one of our prayers here in the church. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. David's going to give us an update on missions.
I don't think this will take too long. Just a reminder that if you're interested in what we do for missions, there's a website, our church website, our international missionaries.
Hey, I don't think your mic's on.
How's that? I thought those speakers worked so good that it's just all natural. So, but I was going to say on the website, for those on the live stream, what I was saying is we've got a place on our website where you can go and see all the various organizations and missionaries that we support. Tonight, I just want to give you a quick update on our 4 kind of large sponsored missionaries that we have internationally. And so some of them sent me some information to share. Mick Williams and I had a Zoom call with Gabriel Martinez in Bolivia last week, which was great. Me, Reggie, it was Randy Gibson, I believe, sat down and had lunch with Gabriel in August of 2019. And our goal was that we had already been down there and back by now and organizing another team to go down and do some construction work for him. And unfortunately, we've not been able to do that. But the good news is Gabriel's kind of back on track with that project, and one of the things that we had agreed to help him with was getting some water and electricity there, and he's about at the point he's ready for that. So hopefully soon we'll have some information on that. He's going to be starting his project there, and he's going to be working with some local volunteers, and at some point we'll get down there. If we don't help him build, we'll go down and minister in the facility that he's building. So we just had a great, direct conversation with him, and it's good to see them doing well. You know, the Hitchcocks, many of you know, signed on with Samaritan's Purse and have been in Chagorria. They are finishing up their commitment with them, and they're actually going to be coming back to the States soon. So you'll see them here in early November. And they just ask that you would pray for them as they're seeking God's will for kind of the next chapter in their life. But we are looking forward to them being back for a little bit and being able to visit with us here. The Gibsons, I'm going to save that one to last. The Soratals, Elijah says they're doing well in Romania. Reggie will have, maybe not this week, but next week, one of these weeks, we'll have maybe some pictures and some exciting news, and I'll save that. But let me just say that they're doing well. And one of the things he asked us just to pray over, he works there at the university. That's a challenging environment. I can speak to that myself. It's hard doing higher education when a lot of that's online. It also affects things like attendance and enrollment. So their university, he just asked us to be in prayer for them as they're trying to continue classes and minister, but also for his family, as he's got 2 or 3 kids that would be in school but are now at home, and 5 people fighting over 2 computers and those types of things that we're dealing with in the States as well. So, but he was thankful for our prayers and support. And then Daniel, he probably had the most updates of anyone, and I'll try to summarize this quickly. It sounds like they're doing good, obviously, in Japan. Things are a little different there now because of COVID, and they live in a larger city. So imagine being in a more metropolitan area where there are going to be more restrictions and things like that. They've got, I think he said, 4 kids in 3 schools. So that's a challenge for them. And some of the kids are in Japanese language only schools. So as you can imagine, that's an adjustment, a challenge for them. But he did say that was going well. Of course, they're doing some of the same things we're doing from a church ministry standpoint, and just ask that we continue to be in prayer. So, for example, they're not able to meet in groups, larger groups, as regularly as they would, and mention that, for example, some folks have found, newer believers have found online teaching that is not consistent with the doctrines of the Christian faith, and they're struggling through some of those things, and then they're having a hard time being able to minister with them because of the pandemic. So just pray for their ministry there as they're continuing to reach out and do as much as they can in the city. But on a positive note, he was telling me that a young man he shared with us about in December, he had asked for prayer that he would accept Christ, has indeed accepted Christ and been baptized, and they're discipling him. So it's encouraging to see the fruit of their labor. I know for them, but also for you, because your gifts, support them and allow them to do that work. So just continue to be in prayer about the future for them. Every few years, these folks have decision points that are coming up, and I know they've got some things that they're praying over as far as ministry opportunities. So please just keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And that's it. So if you got any questions, again, you can see me afterwards or check out our website as far as missions goes.
All right. Thank you, David. So I'm going to wrap up and just do a little finance update and a couple of other things. Is there a slide ready, Angela? Somebody? Okay. So to kind of orient you to the slide here, so the blue represents this year. So for any of you that do a lot in the realm of finance or accounting, that sort of thing, this reflects as of August, so the end of August, because even though we're in October now, many of our expenses, our revenue, so to speak, or our giving is finalized, because obviously what came in the month of September has come in, but many of our expenses and those sorts of things have yet to clear the banks and those sort of things. So we, as far as where we're at for September, we're still in good shape, but I don't have those final numbers, so I went with the numbers we had finalized, which was August. So the blue represents where we're at currently. So on the left-hand side, that represents the revenue, and on the right-hand side, that's our expenses. So you can see, as far as where we're at from a revenue versus expense perspective, our giving versus our expenses, for obvious reasons, while we found some incredible opportunities to minister to folks, one thing that I would say that should be encouraging to all of us, and I know Pastor's touched on this a couple times, we've had many people give designated gifts or special gifts above and beyond their normal giving for those specific things. So while we had some missions things that Joel, some of the trips he's leading that typically would have come from some of those line items, we had folks that gave just specifically to those needs, and so it didn't, in fact, impact the budget part of it. So that's been an incredible thing to see in this time. So now, once again, to orient the darker, or the gray there, it's a little different on the screen here in the sanctuary, but the gray represents last year at the same time, so last August. So you can see our giving roughly, a couple $1,000s ahead of where we were this time last year. Our expenses are the biggest piece, so you can see that's roughly $47,000 or so, I think, of difference in expenses. And a lot of that represents some of that designated giving that we've seen, but it also represents a lot of things that, are just part of our normal operations that have been different this year. Truth Quest meals, some of those things. So we've had a tremendous opportunity to minister to folks, and we've been blessed financially to be able to use those funds that way. But you can see, as far as the difference in where we're at, I should have said that, Reggie. If you're watching on the live stream, the slide is not showing on the live stream. Well, we knew that. That's just a technology barrier we have. It was going to be so small in the right-hand corner, it really wouldn't have shown up very well, so we're just showing that here in the sanctuary. We'll post this and get that out on the Connect so that you can see it. So the orange bar in there in the middle, just for a reminder for everyone, the way that we budget is more of a straight line budget. So we basically always throughout the year run, regardless of where we're at, behind what our budget number is, because the nature of the church, and most every church in the U.S. anyway, and I would argue around the world from all the things I've read, the year-end giving that typically happens in December kind of takes us over the budget mark. And so our budget is always set monthly in line with where we set our giving, because as a nonprofit, that's the way that we budget. So you can see we're roughly $31,000 or so behind where our budget is, but usually in every other year in the previous probably 5 or 6 years that I've looked at that, we make up that gap at the end of December as people do year-end giving and those sorts of things. So so that's where we're at from a budget perspective. Talking about some of the things that we're doing with that, as you can imagine, when we first started down this journey back in March, not knowing what might come our way, and particularly as we looked at some of the renovations, which is one of the big pieces I want to talk about, we had a couple issues there. One, we just were unsure of what might happen, and so we felt that it would be prudent to pump the brakes on that and not aggressively pursue some of the renovations we had talked about, because if then we had an issue from a giving perspective, as many had struggled in different things, we would have really been in a difficult situation. So we decided to do that. That also, one of the other reasons behind that is if some of you guys that are involved in various businesses, I can tell you this was true definitely of the hospital environment. All the things that were put in place because the pandemic was occurring, not only from a cost of supply but a cost of labor perspective, those particular projects would have probably been much, much more expensive to do during that time period, because there's all these extra precautions that people are having to do, and then just raw materials and stuff for building and construction astronomically went up in a lot of areas. So we felt like not only were we not sure what would happen in the months going through April, May, that time period, but we also knew that it would probably cost a lot more to pursue those things. So in terms of the renovations that we talked about probably 2 meetings ago in our children's area, we're still really excited about that. Right before we were at the point we were getting ready to send the bid packages out to the various companies to give us bids on them. So we've got the bid packages done, the drawings, all those things are done. We've worked with a construction design firm on all that. So that during that process, we've been doing that over the last 2 years. Not only did we do the design for the children's area, but we also did the sanctuary and some other renovation that's around the physical plant here in the building. And so one of the big barriers as we talked about the sanctuary and some of this area out here was trying to figure out logistically how to do that with the Sunday traffic, because it was going to be very, very disruptive to our Sunday morning activities and all of our CGs and those sorts of things. So as we've sat and talked about the next steps and re-engaging and reigniting kind of the work on the renovations, we're talking through 2 different things right now. The primary being, would it make sense to put the sanctuary renovation and some of the bathrooms in these areas out here, go ahead and get that done in a time where it's easier for us to kind of pivot and maybe use the gym for a couple weeks and that sort of thing, because we don't have 300, 400 people actively using this side of it, and that would really make a big difference. And that was one of the major barriers when we talked about this before. We've got everything ready as far as the children's go. So what I would ask, and what we've talked about, is will you guys commit to praying about that and maybe give us some feedback? We've heard from various folks. We're really excited and very committed to moving forward with the children's project. We don't know that we can support financially because we really, as we've talked about many times, are very intentional about not going in any debt. We feel like we should fund things out of our reserves and our savings because we just feel like that's a biblical model. And so we're not sure that we've got the reserves to do both projects, because probably somewhere in the area of $500,000 to $600,000 roughly in both of those projects, because they're pretty extensive projects. So we'd ask you to be in prayer about that and share some of your thoughts on those two options as we talk about which one makes the most sense and how to kind of cadence those. Another thing that we thought a lot about is the children's area right now. While we have re-engaged children's, KCA, as many of you heard, is using that area, and we would hate to disrupt them and kind of dislodge them for up to 8 to 12 weeks as we did something like that. So we're kind of factoring that in as well. So that's a little update on the renovation plan, but we'd love to hear some feedback on that that anyone would want to offer. The last thing I'll touch on has been something we've spoke about a couple different meetings, and we did finally get some quotes and things on the manse. I know we've had a lot of discussion about the manse and what the plan is for the manse, and really when you look at it, the infrastructure that is in place there, and you just really have to walk the space to understand this, whether it's virtually anything we would want to use that building for, from a life safety and a code perspective, the pipes, the wiring, just everything in there has to be virtually redone, and it's a very expensive project, because as many of you know, if you've ever done those things in your home, sometimes it would be cheaper to knock the thing down and build something else than it would be to gut and do the work in there. So as we've gotten the different quotes back on that, we really feel that it would be most prudent, and we've made the decision to just level the manse, grade that out somehow, and do something different in that space. So we'll be talking about that over the next couple of months. We've gotten some quotes back from some folks, and it was a huge difference in the expense for the church of what that was going to do with that. So we had some interesting prospects for a while on using that building, but as none of those panned out, we just really felt like the Lord was leading us to do something different with that piece of property. So we're blessed to have it. We're excited about that. We think there's some incredible potential for, Joel really wants a pavilion out there to host some big, and we think that's a great concept of some of those things we might be able to do, and have that corner opened up for us over there. So I know that's been a big question. So there's renovation, the manse, and update on the budget. And at this point, we're running right on time, but we were about 10 minutes late getting started, so we'll hang around till around 7:40 or so. But I will open it up. I guess, Reggie, do you get any text questions first?
Chris, could I just maybe start with a question or clarification?
Yes, go ahead.
For those that, when you said that we're looking at the sanctuary over children's, you said we couldn't do both. You meant both at the same time, correct?
Correct, yes. The sanctuary and the children's both at the same time would be financially, just probably would not be, because we try and maintain a reserve fund for, much like many of us do in our own home budgets, for things that we might not be able to expect, like our HVAC units, which obviously are very costly for these large commercial units, and roofing. So Ginger and I are working on a formula right now for exactly how much to reserve, a little more intentional with that every budget year, and I'll be talking about that. We're starting the budget cycle this month, and we'll be talking about that in some upcoming meetings and things. But yes, it's just a matter of not being able to do those simultaneously at the same time. But so we're trying to determine which one makes sense to go first, and then go ahead and start that probably in the next couple months. The good news is the children's area, we already have the bid packages and the everything, drawings and everything done for that. And it's a beautiful space. Many of our families that we let look at that were very excited. So we just want to figure out how to do that. Now, my thought would be, provided everything stays at the run rate we've been on, we could do the sanctuary renovation, and then within a matter of months could probably start to think about the children as well. We just wouldn't be able to do those at the same time. So nobody text any questions. So with that, what questions do we have here in the sanctuary? And I will walk to you, and you can ask, and then I'll repeat it in the microphone. Yes, sir. Mr. Joe. So the question was, what are the plans in the sanctuary? So we have some renderings that the design firm came up with, and Charlie's working on a few last-minute pieces with that, because if you recall, we did this whole area up here at the front that Charlie and the team did a great job on. That really fits into the overall scheme of the rest of the sanctuary. And so the biggest pieces of it are some different lighting, not these globe lighting. The drop ceiling's largely the same, paint and patch, that kind of thing on the walls, new flooring. One of the things that's very popular right now for a lot of reasons, we love to have coffee. I love to have coffee, but also obviously love kids. And guess what? You get kids and coffee together and they spill the coffee. And so right now, if that happens, we have to try and clean really well. What you see in a lot of your commercial projects and areas like churches these days are these big tile carpet squares, right, that you can put down, and then if there's an issue with that, you just pull the square up, put a new one down, and you've got. So really it's flooring, lighting, ceiling, and walls, aesthetics, those kind of things. Probably the biggest thing that we're still talking through with them and trying to understand is the seating. So obviously these pews are very old, and we would update our seating. Our seating capacity stays about the same, but the layout of the room gets a little different. Still have a big aisle here in the center. We don't have that split aisle, but it's definitely more modern seating that you guys are a little more stadium style seating if you're familiar with that kind of look. The biggest challenge there from a financial perspective is that because of the grade of this floor, so if this room was flat, we could go with a lot of different styles of seating because the chairs just sit flat on the floor. The way this floor is graded out, the seating almost has to be custom made because of the angle on the floor. So the chairs are standardized, but they have to make these special brackets that go on the bottom of the chair to meet the angle of the floor so that the seating works out the right way. So that's where the expense comes in. It's a fairly, I think there's probably, of the $300,000 or so in that project, I want to say almost half of it is just in the seating. But it's a lot of seating, so that makes sense. But it has to be customized. So I don't know. Did that answer your question well enough? Okay. Yeah, sorry. The other piece to that is extends all the way out in the into the foyer area, and basically. If you use the coat closets, I'm sorry, I don't think a lot of people do. We'll figure something out on that. But we need to expand these bathrooms a little bit and do some work in those bathrooms because we've talked about that a number of times. So that project addresses this area in here, aesthetically, the flooring, the seating, and some other things that we got to do with the inside, and then goes all the way out to the foyer area and slightly down towards the coffee bar in the hallway. That would be new flooring all the way out through there, and updates both of the bathrooms outside. And all the way into the foyer area. Kind of stops, at these two hallways right here, basically. So, it's a pretty big project.
And there'll also be 3D renderings and all of that long before the project gets started. So you'll be able to see it. They're all in the process now of being designed and tweaked and all of that.
Correct. Yeah. So the architect had some renderings for us. We talked about maybe having those available, but there's a few of the way the stage was laid out in the renderings doesn't match what our current model is because it was done before this renovation piece was done. So Charlie's working with a gentleman's named Stacy Cox, who's a great guy that his company specializes in churches. That's what they do. So had a message just now asking about the manse. It was a text question. So the question is, why not go ahead and just demolish the manse and do a lot of that work immediately? That's definitely not off the table. I think, some of the quotes we've gotten to demolish the manse are, they're not bad. They're somewhere in the realm of $50,000 to $75,000, which sounds pretty extensive, but when you think about tearing down the entire building and really doing away with and dealing with all the debris from that and the building materials, because unfortunately there's a lot of things in that manse that we can't just deal with like some of us would in our homes because there's things that are so dated, they've got a lot of biohazard issues with them, so they have to deal with them that way. Then what do you do with the basement? So tearing it down is one thing. Dealing with what's left once you tear it down is another thing, and that could get fairly costly. We've got to get some better pricing on that now that we've decided to kind of go that direction. So, with some of the other things we've got on our plate, while we have a plan for that, we feel like it may be more prudent to look at some of the other things we've got inside the building. That doesn't mean that's off the table. I think the question is based on the net excess funds we have. With our reserve dollars and those net excess funds, that gets us a long way in the renovation because I said we just do not want to deal with debt. We don't want to finance anything. We want to be able to pay the contractors and get the work done and feel like we're being good stewards of that and not have any debt associated. So More to come on the Mance. That's a pretty recent decision, but we'll get some more dollars on that. Who else has questions here in the sanctuary, or text them to Reggie? What's your phone number again, Reggie? 676 2676, right? So text now. Who else has a question about anything?
I'll say
Nobody?
something real quick while people are asking. I've had people ask me, not tonight, but at other times. We're getting ready to go on another Samaritan's Purse disaster relief trip. Sunday morning, we're heading out very early. And if you've watched the weather at all or listened to the news, obviously, we're going to do relief from Hurricane Laura. And Hurricane Delta is on its way in, which will hit pretty much the area that we'll be going to. The hurricane's supposed to hit Friday and be gone by Saturday. We arrive Sunday. So as well as still cleaning up from Laura, we'll kind of be some of the first responders as far as Hurricane Delta. So do keep us in your prayers. When you wake up, we will have been driving for many hours already. So just in case anyone else was wondering, is that trip still happening? Yes, it is. No, it's too late to sign on now, but maybe we can do another one. Yes, we're taking a van, not our van. We're renting a van. But I would like to say, as someone pointed out, the last time we went to Iowa, and you were talking about people contributing to certain things and offsetting the cost. Someone paid for the van rental. Our van is old. We use it locally. I use it a lot with youth things that are close by, but for a longer trip like that where we need the reliability, we rent a van, and thank you to whoever did that. That was much appreciated.
Any other questions or anything we can, even if it's not a question, any update on anything or anything we didn't cover that you'd like to hear more about? I know somebody has to have something in there. Yes, sir. Yeah, so on the, okay. So in the renovation or in the demolition part? Okay. So, the renovation side, let me touch on just both aspects of it. And some of this, and feel free, Reggie, or anybody that has any information, because, some of this quite a bit precedes me as far as, the financial part of it and just my role in that. But you've got everything from, as far as using the Mance for meeting spaces and housing for any, we had talked in the past years ago, I think, not long after we actually came to Heritage, probably. When did we purchase the Mance, Reggie? What year that was?
Was it 10?
2008, 10?
2010? 2008?
Okay, so 12 years ago or so, there was discussion about it, a respite or an area for missionaries. So when you start getting into the life safety code and all the things from a code perspective that you have to have for that to be appropriate, to house people, to hold meetings in there, egress spaces. I mean, it was a house, but we fall under a lot of different requirements as far as like in your house, you don't have to have lit exit signs and things of that nature. And so, as that property would be used for other things affiliated with the church, there's a lot of other requirements you have to meet that would not be something we would typically see in our homes. That in turn then gets you into having to update all the wiring and all the fuse boxes, and that's above and beyond things like windows that are just old and are leaking, and floors that have mold in them, and you got to pull those up. And we've talked a number of times. It's hard to rewind and say if we'd have done anything prior to this, could we have dealt with any? I dare say you probably couldn't have dealt with the infrastructure issues because those just are what they are. The wiring is what it is. The piping is what it is. The material that's in the ceilings and the floors and the walls that we're being told are not up to code and would definitely have to be removed before anybody could occupy that space or be in there for purposes. That wouldn't have changed. Now, some of the dilapidation, so to speak, of the actual building itself, you definitely could have done something with the windows and those sorts of things that maybe have helped some of that.
Bruce,
Yes.
I was going to throw something in there too. Going back, if you think 5 or 6 years, even the previous model where we had a finance team, they did a lot of work on this. We've been trying to get even a tenant, is there a nonprofit that could use that? And the closest we ever came was, probably a year and a half ago. I think Gene and I walked the property. Joel, you may have done that as well. And we were hopeful that maybe somebody would occupy that space. Back of the napkin, they were estimating about $100,000 to $120,000 just to kind of not really doing major renovations, but just to get it up to meet their needs for basic, space that they could utilize for their nonprofit needs. And we were hopeful that we would find, but we've had people suggest those organizations to us. We've reached out to multiple, and so we really have been trying, I'd say, for 5 to 6 years to find a good use for that space, and we just have not been able to do so.
Yeah, so as far as the finer details, I could certainly get those specifics. I mean, we haven't had an architect or anyone look at it and give it, that where we were going to have to spend, $10,000 on what we call an A&E review, which is a architecture and engineering review. But everyone that's walked it, has looked at it, has given us some ballpark estimates of just the general things you would have to do to get it to a code perspective. Then on top of that, you're going to have your general ongoing annual things, which annualized would be a lot more than what we're looking at if we just do something different with that plot of land from a perspective. And be happy to visit more on that and give some more detail.
Does that answer it, Vic? Okay, because I know other people have that same question too. Why we're not going to use it? It's a beautiful structure, but we had it on the IMB website for a while, and we would host missionaries coming through. Wasn't that often, but we would, and we were very grateful to do that. Had to have a team to support that and keep that going. And then when we stopped doing that because the house was just not appropriate to host people anymore, then it just became obvious that because it moved from a residence to owned by us, the cost to bring it up to use would be exorbitant. And then, as David said, to find a tenant for it, we've been unsuccessful. We've looked for a long time and talked to various not-for-profit organizations. We'd lease it to them for $1 a year. If somebody would come in and use it, a good not-for-profit ministry. We've not found any takers, and so.
Yeah, and I think David probably touched on something that's pretty important. The last group that looked at it, they actually built a headquarters because they felt like it was cheaper to build something than to renovate that space. So that's kind of the same predicament that I think we find ourselves in. Any other questions about anything? Children's ministry, financials, missions, preaching?
Chris, someone asked about ladies' ministry.
Yes, sir.
And what's going on with the ladies' ministry. COVID really shut us down with the ladies' ministry, our small groups getting together, the ladies getting together for Bible studies and book studies and things of that nature. And Zoom is hard. From my perspective, being a man, easier for a woman to leave her house and come to a study than it is to stay at home, because if she's at home, she's available. That's sad to say, but it's true. And so we just kind of shut down. I mean, COVID just shut us down on ladies' ministry. We did have Rebecca in. She live streamed. And I've been in touch with Rosaria Butterfield and her ministry, trying to get her to come in and live stream. I don't know that that'll take place. But if you have any ideas, I'm looking for someone else to come in and live stream to our ladies and bring our ladies in as a group and let them speak to our ladies. So again, if you have ideas, that'd be great. But insofar as small groups, COVID just shut us down from having our different ladies' Bible studies and book studies.
Well, we're almost at 7:30. Is there anything else for the good of the order? Okay. Well, we're going to hang around. I know I'll be around and I know Charlie would love to take some folks on a tour of the. I've said a couple times in the welcomes that I really appreciate Charlie's work on that space. I see Karam's here, and there's some other folks that really have a tremendous opportunity from a ministry perspective, as the realm of social media and those sort of things is such the pros and cons of that, but it's such a platform to be able to share the gospel. And we certainly don't ever want virtual church to replace in-person church. I think it's great that we have technology right now in this moment, but we certainly don't want to forsake that fellowship that we have. But for folks like Karam, and some others that have expressed that. And so Charlie had a lot of vision on that, and it's a beautiful space up there that is very much of a broadcast booth that can be used not only to run our what we're doing here, but to do podcasts and those sorts of things out of. That's just a beautiful opportunity for folks that can use that to spread the gospel on a social media platform. So feel free to go take a look at that. We'll hang around, and if there's any other questions that we didn't answer that you personally want to ask, we'll be happy to answer those. And I will ask Robert, as our faithful prayer warrior, to close us in prayer. Unless Reggie had was that another question that came through? Last chance? Okay. All right. Robert, would you close us in prayer, sir?
Father, we thank you this evening for the time we've had together. Thank you, Father, that we're able to begin to crank back up some programs, especially our children and youth programs. God, we just ask for your leadership and guidance. We ask that you would be honored in our lives and through our church. And Lord, help us as we go out from here to be lights in a dark world, Lord, to be salt in a dying and decaying world. Lead us, guide us, and be honored as we leave and depart. In Jesus' name, amen.